You could have like a world-class document on what sex education is, but the onus is on the teacher to impart that knowledge in a practical way to students.
What do you think of how Malaysians look at sex?
It is something that people don't feel comfortable talking about. I mean, in itself you may not think of it as an issue, but then that leads to a lot of other, things that become an issue. So, when someone has, sexual abuse, sexual assault, these things also are deemed to be things that people still are uncomfortable to talk about. They might rather just ignore it or deny it.
YB, what do you think? I mean, what do you think of how Malaysians look at sex?
When you mention the word sex, it makes everybody smile, smirk, and become very shy because it's generally still a very taboo subject because they always associate sex with nothing else except the act of it. I think because of the lack of talking about sex objectively, to normalize associating sex with other things other than the actual act itself, I think we're quite far behind.
Why is it hard first to just talk about sex? That means that the Westerners get it right because they talked about the birds and the bees to their kids? Is that because they're not any better or worse than we are, right?
Maybe it'd be more helpful to think of specific instances. It's not, I don't think things are sort of like a blanket, like let's talk about more sex in general. I think it's more like let's look at specific things and see how being more open and transparent can actually help. So one good example is sex education. Because sex is seen as unspoken and something we shouldn't talk about to children, sex education is quite limited in the country.
But it's been talked about. They talked about wanting to have sex education in schools for a long time, right?
So some activists talk about it, but in terms of the mainstream and what the government wants to do is definitely, the government does not want to have more or comprehensive sex education in schools. So in that particular example, you can look at studies that some studies show that if we actually have a more comprehensive sexual and reproductive related kind of education, it can actually help to reduce unwanted pregnancies, number one, because people know how to protect themselves, and number two, it can also delay having sex. So people worry that if we talk about sex, teenagers are all going to have sex. But some evidence shows the contrary. If people are educated, if teenagers are educated, then they'll know if I do this, it'll be like this. These are the risks. These are the rights that I have. I can say no. I can do what I'm comfortable with. And in that sense, overall, it can help delay people's decisions into having sex.
As far as I know, and I've got my nephews, nieces, and friends, kids in school, there is sex education in school. Is it comprehensive or is it just like something that just happens by the way?
In my opinion, there are international standards, there are international syllabus. There's a code of what children should know, what children who are in puberty age, adolescents, teenagers, etc., up to adults should know about sex education. The standard that we have in Malaysia is quite, although there has been some improvement, but we're still not up to mark yet, and I think it's not just what's on paper, it's not just what is in the policy or in the law, but the execution of it. You could have like a world-class document on what sex education is, but the onus is on the teacher to impart that knowledge in a practical way to students. You desensitize the entire thing and teach the child about sex education other than the actual act of sex. And I think a recent survey showed that less than 20% of teenagers at the age of 17 knew exactly what sex was or sex education actually is. The rest of them obtained bits and pieces of information from their peers and their friends.
That means the execution to try to educate is there, but people just aren't listening. Is that a problem?
No, not really. I think even the modus operandi is it's not enough. The issue here is children in school, teenagers in school. I think reaching out to them and talking about sex when it comes to sex education. I think there's room for improvement on how you want to package the story to get them to understand. Mine, when I learned it in school, sexual reproductive health, it was very sterile. It was just as the teacher just couldn't wait to get over and done with.
Yeah.
Subject, and then move on to persenyawaan bunga la and all these kind of things, which was they spend more time on that than anything else. So the syllabus is there, but it's not enough. I think Renchong may want to.
Yeah, what do you think of sex education in Malaysia? Does it even exist?
Yeah, I mean, it exists in various forms. What you learn in school. I mean, there are education groups out there. There are groups that work specifically on sexual reproductive rights, who are looking into these issues. But they are saying that we're not there, and there's a standard. Let's just follow that.
Hey guys, we hope you loved that discussion, but for the full discussion and all our other videos, click right here. And remember, don't be a dick.